Okay, third graders, today I am going to step you through drawing a 3-tier cake. And I want you to pay attention to how I do this. I want you to draw with this video. The teacher who's with you today is going to pause the video as we do each tier so that you can do the lines you need to do. But a 3-tier cake is basically taking 3 cylinders and putting them on top of each other. The bottom cylinder is going to be the biggest cylinder. The second cylinder that sits on top of the first cylinder will be a little smaller, and then the third cylinder is smaller yet. After we're done drawing this cake together, you get to decorate your cake representing your family. I want you to come up with symbols and very lightly using ghost lines, I want you to draw designs on your cake that represent your family and the people you love. So I am going to start with the cake. Draw with me. Last week we talked about making cylinders, and the first part of making a cylinder is to draw parallel lines. Now look at the paper I have. I have a big sheet of paper like the rest of you. And I'm going to draw darker with my pencil than you should be because I want you to be able to see it. But your drawing should be very light, ghost lines. So I'm going to start with 2 parallel lines. I want my cake to fill in my space. So my first lines are going to be like this. I'm going to draw my first line, and even for this example today I'm doing a ghost line because I always have to start with ghost lines, and then I'll go over my lines a little bit darker so that you can see them, but you should keep them light. So let your pencil barely touch the paper, barely touching the paper, and I'm making ghost lines. And now for you to see better, I will make my lines a little darker, and I will make this line a little darker. And what you're going to do, and I'm sure you remember this step, I'm going to connect the bottom of my cake, but I cannot connect it with a straight line. I need to create a curve, and remember we talked about last week how the bottom curve of a cake, or of a cylinder, a cylinder, the lowest part of that curve should be in the middle. So I go from one side about halfway, and then I go to the other side about halfway, and I keep making ghost lines until I get that exactly where I want. Now don't worry about erasing your mistakes right now. If you're drawing with ghost lines, you can ignore your mistakes, and then as you continue to work on and finish your cake, you will erase the lines you don't want to keep. But don't worry about erasing now. Right now, focus on getting this drawn. Okay, so I have this here. Now I need to draw the top, and remember I want this curve to be very similar on the top. And remember my parallel lines, when I drew them, I wanted them to be similar in height, right? Otherwise my cylinders start to get very lopsided. Again, I curve towards the center, curve towards the center. I don't want this curve to be too big or too much of a curve. I want it to be somewhat subtle, but it cannot be a straight line. If it's looking like a straight line, you need to stop for a moment, look, figure out how to make it curve a little bit more, and then draw that line. Okay, so now I have created 2 curved lines for my cylinder, and again I'm trying to make mine darker for you instead of just leaving them ghost lines so you see, but don't make yours dark. And I have this part. Now if the video needs to be paused so you can catch up, you should pause it now and everyone should catch up. Alright, the next step of course is going to be creating the back of my cylinder. And the back of my cylinder here curves. And it curves out, and remember we don't want to curve it too much or we start to make it look like we have like a garbage can top or something like that, and we don't want that. And just like the other curve, the highest part of this curve should be towards the center. So I go from one side moving up towards the center, and then I go to this side. Now I don't want my corners here to be totally angled. I want them to have a slight curve in them. Okay? So I go up here, voila. Now make sure you keep this a ghost line. It's really important for our cakes here for this to be a ghost line because this line here, some of it's going to be erased when we're done. But we're not going to erase it right now. We're not going to worry about that. I have to make another cylinder. And this cylinder is going to sit on top of this. So the question becomes, do I draw the bottom of my next cake tier? Do I draw it here? Do I draw the bottom here? Or do I draw the bottom here? The right answer is to draw the bottom here. And actually I'm going to go a little bit lower because I don't want it smack in the center. But I'm going to draw, and I'm going to do this cylinder different. I'm not going to start with my parallel lines right now. I'm going to start with the bottom of that cylinder. And that bottom is going to curve like this line. So I'm going to draw this, and I'm going to curve that line. And I'm going to make this, I'm going to try to make it nice and nice and symmetrical on my curve. And I'm going to make it as wide as I want that tier to be. I think I want my tier to go about there and about there. Okay. I'm going to make that curve come down just a little bit more. I'm not going to worry about erasings right now. I'm just going to worry about doing ghost lines. Check your pressure. If you're drawing too dark, lighten it up now. Don't worry about erasing dark lines. Just lighten up. Go back to light. Now, I'm going to go to this end and this end and draw my two parallel lines. I'm going to make this tier as tall as I want. Remember the space on your paper. You've got quite a bit of space. And so let's think about filling in that space. We want our whole picture to look interesting. And if we have a bunch of empty space, it's not going to look very interesting. So, I have two parallel lines now, and I'm going to connect them just like I've been connecting all of my other tops. Curve line starting here, going down, curve line starting here and going down. And I'm trying to make it similar to all my other curves that have been going in this direction because we're looking at this from the same angle. And of course, always stop for a second, just step back, make sure everything's looking okay. Your brain's really smart. Even if your brain's not sure why something doesn't look right, it can tell that something doesn't look right. And then you can stop and just let your brain ask itself, is this looking 3D? And if it's not, ask yourself, why not? Try to figure out what's wrong. This back line here is going to curve up again. So I start this way, I meet towards the center at the highest point. Again, don't want it to go too high. I don't want this edge either to be a sharp edge. That should not be a sharp edge. Okay. Now, I've got that. Now I must do my last layer. Again, I'm going to start with a curved line, and I'm going to start that curved line right about here, a little bit below center of the cake. Okay, and I want this one to be about this wide. Now remember, I'm drawing designs on my cake, so I want to have enough space on all three tiers to create symbols. These two lines go straight up. I'm going to make this one a little taller. It's smaller in width, but I'm going to make it a little high. And if this side goes up that high, that means this side needs to go up that high. A little higher. Alright, I need to connect those sides now using ghost lines. Swoop down to the center, swoop, swoop. I keep going back and forth until my ghost lines look right. And then I make my back, swoops slightly up, just a tish, and voila, I have created a 3-tier cake. Now, there's a couple issues still. I'm not ready to decorate because I cannot see through cake. Cake is not transparent. I cannot see through it. So what I need to do right now is I need to erase some lines. I would be able to see this line because it's the very front, and I would be able to see this bottom line of my cake. I would not be able to see this line through my second tier because I can't see through the cake to see the back of the bottom tier. So I need to erase this line, and this is why it's so important to do ghost lines. When you do want to totally get rid of a line, you want to be able to not see it. Now if for some reason your pressure was a little too hard on your pencil and you can see that line a little bit, do not worry. Next week we're going to color these in. And when we color these in, we can make a lot of those lines disappear that aren't erasing well. This line here too, in this cake, on this top tier, needs to disappear. I cannot see through that tier. Now, I'm going to brush that away, get it out of my way. Now I have a wonderful 3-tier cake. I have a special challenge for you in decorating these cakes. I want you to, like I said, represent your family and your family members in this cake with symbols. I don't want you to use words. Now that makes this a little harder, but you all have wonderful brains and I know you can manage to figure out symbols and images that will represent your family members. Stay away from words. Think about your family members, think about who they are and how much you love them, think about the things they love to do, think about their personalities. What kind of images can you use to represent your family? Okay, everybody, draw with pencil, draw ghost lines. That's what you should work on for the rest of the class. And then at the end of class today, we'll put these in our folders. And then next week, we will begin to color these in.